Hello, my dear students. Good evening. So, in today's class, we are discussing about some important questions and some questions which are from the uh, previous year question paper as well as some important question from this chapter. Okay, so already we have discussed some important questions. In today's class, we are continuing with that. Okay, so already we have discussed a few questions in the last class. Let us continue that. I hope all are ready to listen the class. Yes. If you have any doubts, you can write down in the chat box. Okay. Yeah. So in the last class, we have discussed a few questions. In the 2 mark questions, short answer questions, 4 questions already completed. So let us start with the fifth question. Yes. Explain the digestion of food materials in stomach and small intestine. Explain the digestion of food materials in the stomach and small intestine, both in the stomach and the small intestine. You know that in the stomach, HCl, then pepsin, and mucus, so that will release from the gastric glands. So this gastric gland that releases the some chemicals in the stomach with the help of the pepsin, so which act on the protein. Pepsin, it act on the protein, and HCl, so it convert the food into acidic medium, the food into acidic medium. So why it is converting the food, so which comes from the mouth to the stomach, why it is converting into a acidic? Because HCl is a acid. Why it is converting into the food acidic? Because to perform the pepsin, so pepsin is able to do its works, it is able to perform its work, so that is conversion, digestion of protein only in the acidic medium. Okay, only in the acidic medium. So the HCl which convert the food into acidic, then pepsin that act on the protein, partial digestion of the protein will take place in the stomach, and mucus that protect the walls of the stomach, that protect the walls of the stomach from the HCl. So HCl can affect the walls of the stomach, so that walls of the stomach is, so that is protected by the mucus. So that is a jelly like substances that protect the stomach. Then small intestine. Small intestine, it receives the two types of the juice. So first one is the bile juice, and second one is the pancreatic juice, pancreatic juice. Then uh, the intestine, inside the small intestine itself, so intestinal juice will produce. Okay, intestine, walls of the intestine that produce the intestinal juice. Here the bile juice that is released by liver, so that enter to the small intestine, through the bile duct, which act on the fat, mainly the bile juice which act on the fat, which convert the large globules of the fat. Actually fat that is in a large chain of large globules chain, but the fat that will convert into small globules with the help of the bile juice. Then pancreatic juice, so it helps to convert the protein. So there is a enzyme lipase, and trypsin. So there are two enzymes in the pancreatic juice, lipase and trypsin. Lipase which act on the fat, lipase which act on the fat, and trypsin again it helps to digestion of the protein. Again, it helps to the digestion of the protein. Again, the intestinal juice finally convert the fat into convert the fat into fatty acid and glycerol, and protein into amino acid, and carbohydrate into glucose. So these all are simpler form of the this complex food materials, complex nutrients. So this is the how digestion of the food takes place in the small intestine as well as in the stomach, and absorption also takes place in the small intestine. Yes, see here, the gastric glands present in the walls of the stomach secrete HCl, mucus, and pepsin. Pepsin break down the proteins. Hydrochloric acid creates an acidic medium which facilitates the action of the enzyme pepsin. So they will ask what is the function of the hydrochloric acid in our stomach. So the correct answer is, so which creates the acidic medium which facilitates the action of the enzyme pepsin. The mucus protects the inner lining of the stomach from the action of the acid under the normal condition. Then the digestion in the small intestine. In the small intestine, the food mixed with the bile juice, so that is that secrete from the liver, and pancreatic juice from the pancreas. Bile breaks down the fats into small globules. The bile juice that break down the food material into the fat, especially fats, into small globules. Pancreatic juice contain the enzymes trypsin, which act on proteins, and lipase break down the fats. The walls of the small intestine secrete the intestinal juice. It contains the enzymes. Finally, they helps to convert the carbohydrate into glucose, proteins into amino acids, and fats into fatty acid and glycerol. So finally, the digestion takes place in the small intestine. Complete digestion takes place in the small intestine, and the complete absorption also takes place in the small intestine. Okay. Next question. Explain the role of xylem and phloem tissues in the transportation of the materials in plants. Explain the role of xylem and phloem tissues in the transportation of materials in plants. Yes, how the xylem, in the xylem tissue, vessels and tracheids of the roots, stem, and leaves are interconnected to form continuous system of water conducting channel reaching all the parts of the plant. At the roots, cells in contact with the soil actively take up the ions. So this creates a difference in the concentration of these ions between the root and the soil. So the water therefore moves into the root from the soil to eliminate this difference. This means that there is a steady movement of water into root xylem, creating a column of water that is steadily pushed upwards. So that water is steadily pushing upwards. Next question, next point, that is about the phloem. So material like sucrose is transferred into phloem tissue using the energy from the ATP. So this ATP is used in case of the phloem. This increases the osmotic pressure of the tissue, causing water to move into it, and this pressure moves the material in the to tissues which have the less pressure. So from higher pressure, where the water creates the higher pressure, to the lower pressure it moves. This allows the phloem to move the material according to the plant's needs. According to the plant's needs, the food material will be supplied. So this is how the food material is transported in the phloem, and how the water is conducted in the xylem. Very important question for your exam. Okay. Next question. Which molecule is formed during the first step of cellular respiration by the breakdown of glucose molecule in cytoplasm? Mention the types of respiration and write any two difference between them. Okay. So here in all type of respiration, glucose, so that glucose in the presence of glucose, in the presence of in the cytoplasm, which convert into a, so this is a 6 carbon molecule, convert into a pyruvate, which convert into a pyruvate. Which molecule is formed during the first step of cellular respiration? Pyruvate molecule is formed during the first step of cellular respiration by the breakdown of glucose molecule in the cytoplasm, by the breakdown of glucose molecule in the cytoplasm. Then mention the types of respiration. Types of respiration, that is aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration, aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. So what is the difference? Write the two difference. They ask, write the two difference between the aerobic and anaerobic respiration. I will write the difference. So aerobic, anaerobic. Aerobic respiration, where the breakdown of the glucose molecule in the presence of oxygen. Here breakdown of the glucose molecules or pyruvate, conversion of the pyruvate, you can write breakdown of the pyruvate molecule in the absence of the oxygen. Okay, here in the aerobic respiration, large amount of energy released, but in case of the anaerobic respiration compared to the aerobic respiration, when it compared to the anaerobic, less energy is released. Less energy is released. Okay. When it compared to the aerobic respiration, less energy is released. And one more difference here. The product, so that forms carbon dioxide, water and energy is formed. Here in the yeast cells, where it perform the anaerobic respiration and produce the ethanol, carbon dioxide and energy is released. In case of the muscle cells, in the absence of the oxygen or in the low oxygen condition, the muscle cells, they produce the lactic acid. Muscle cells produce the lactic acid and energy. Okay, so like that you should write the difference between the aerobic and the anaerobic respiration. One of the important question. Next question, mention the events that occur during the photosynthesis in plants. What are the methods used by the plants to get rid of excretory products? What are the methods used by plants to get rid of the excretory products? Here, first is the steps involved in the photosynthesis, that is absorption of light energy by the chlorophyll, conversion of light energy to chemical energy and splitting of water molecules into hydrogen and oxygen, splitting of the water H2O into H2 and O2. Then reduction of carbon dioxide into carbohydrates, reduction of carbon dioxide to carbohydrates. So these are the very, very important. They will ask what is photosynthesis, write the steps involved in the photosynthesis, or write down the chemical equation of the photosynthesis. So this is also one of the important question and repeatedly asked question. So how the plants get rid of the waste products? In plants, the gaseous waste products produced during the respiration, so that is carbon dioxide, and photosynthesis, so that is oxygen, they are removed through the stomata. The waste products during the respiration in plants, that is the carbon dioxide, and during the photosynthesis, that is the oxygen, they are removed through the stomata, gaseous exchange through the stomata. And excess of water is removed through the stomata. This process is called as a transpiration. And some waste products stored in the leaves and removed when the leaves dry fall off. So these some waste products in the leaves, and they are removed so when they are fall off. Next question. Some waste products are stored in vacuoles of the cells, and other waste products are stored as resins and gums, especially in old xylem. Plants also excrete some waste substances into the soil and around them. So through the roots or some other parts used to remove the some waste substances. Okay, so this is how the plants get rid of their waste products. The plants, they do not have any specialized system for the excretion. Next question. Draw the diagram showing the structure of nephron and label the glomerulus. So you have to draw the diagram of the nephron. Very important structure. Many times this question is repeatedly asked, and you have to note or label the some given parts, or sometime they will ask just label it. Okay, here glomerulus, so this is the glomerulus, and afferent arteriole, efferent arteriole, then PCT, this is the proximal convoluted tubule, and collecting duct, this is the collecting duct, and descending limb of loop of Henle, and this is the ascending limb of loop of Henle, vasa recta. So these all parts you have to label. So from starting, I'm saying that uh, please practice the diagram daily. Few diagrams, okay? So from chemistry section or biology section, so you have to practice the few diagrams. So that is very important. Next question. Draw the diagram showing the structure of human excretory system and label the ureter. So you have to label the human excretory system diagram. So this is the human excretory system. You can draw this diagram. Okay. Here, this is the left renal artery, and this is the left renal vein. So this is the renal artery and renal vein, and left kidney. So this is the left kidney and aorta, vena cava, and left ureter. So urinary bladder and urethra. So these all labelings you have to practice. ಎಲ್ಲ labelings ಅನ್ನ practice ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ. ಯಾವ parts ಏನಂತ label ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿರಬೇಕು. Okay. So here it is in English. So that is helpful for you. Okay. Next question. Draw the diagram showing the sectional view of the human heart. Label the following parts. Aorta, chamber of the heart that receives the deoxygenated blood. Which chamber receives the deoxygenated blood? Here. This is the sectional view of the human heart. So it is given in your textbook that you have to ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟೀಸ್. ಓಕೆ, ನಿಮ್ಮ ಟೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ NCERT ಟೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಬುಕ್ಕಲ್ಲಿ ಏನು ಕೊಟ್ಟಿರ್ತಾರೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ, ಅದನ್ನು ನೀವು ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟೀಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಬೇಕು. Here, which chamber receives the deoxygenated blood here? That is the right atrium. Right atrium which receives the deoxygenated blood. Okay. Then these are the pulmonary veins which carry the blood to the heart, and left atrium, left ventricle, and this is the septum which separate the heart into two separate chambers, right ventricles, and this is the vena cava which collects the deoxygenated blood, and this is the upper vena cava which collects the deoxygenated blood from the upper part of the body, and this is the right atrium, right ventricle, and these are the pulmonary arteries. So this carries the blood to the lungs. So this is how the diagram of heart and sectional view of the heart, and how to label it. So label it very carefully and practice all the labelings. ಒಂದೊಂದು ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಪೇಪರಲ್ಲಿ ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಕ್ವಶನ್ಸ್ ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಮಾತ್ರ ಕೇಳಿರ್ತಾರೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ. ಸೊ ಡೋಂಟ್ ಡೂ ಲೈಕ್ ದಟ್, ಪ್ಲೀಸ್ ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟೀಸ್ ಆಲ್ ದ ಡಯಾಗ್ರಾಮ್ಸ್. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಕ್ವಶನ್. Explain the stages of double circulation. Explain the stages of the double circulation here. First step, that is oxygen rich blood from the lungs comes to the thin walled upper chamber of the heart on the left. So that is called as the left atrium here. So which chamber that receives the oxygenated blood? So this one. So the pulmonary veins, they carry the blood to the left atrium. So this is the left atrium. Okay. Next. The left atrium relaxes when it collecting this blood. Then it contracts while the next chamber. So the chamber ಅದೇನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಕಾಂಟ್ರಾಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ. ಕಾಂಟ್ರಾಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಕಾಂಟ್ರಾಕ್ಟ್ ಆದಾಗ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಚೇಂಬರ್ಗೆ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಬ್ಲಡ್ ವಿಲ್ ಮೂವ್. The left ventricle relaxes so that the blood is transferred to it. Then, when the muscular left ventricle contracts, in its turn, the blood is pumped out of the different parts of the body through the aorta. See the diagram here. In the next step, this left ventricle relaxes and which receives the blood. So here you can see the arrow mark which receives the blood from the left atrium. When it contract, this muscular left ventricle contract, ಅದು ಕಾಂಟ್ರಾಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ. ಕಾಂಟ್ರಾಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಆದರೆ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, then the blood that does not back flow to the left atrium because of these walls, ಮತ್ತೆ ಅದು ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ ಫ್ಲೋ ಆಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಇಟ್ ಮೂವ್ಸ್ ಟು ದ ಥ್ರೂ ದ ಅಯೋಟಾ, ಅಯೋಟಾದಿಂದ. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ದ vein which carries the oxygenated blood to all the parts of the body. Oxygenated blood ಅನ್ನ ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ parts ಗೆ ಏನು ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ, ಅದು ಸಪ್ಲೈ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. Okay. So this is the first step in the blood double circulation. In the next step, deoxygenated blood comes from the body to the upper chamber on the right atrium as it relaxes. As the right atrium contracts, the corresponding lower chamber, the right ventricle dilates. ನೋಡಿ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್, ಡಿಆಕ್ಸಿಜನೇಟೆಡ್ ಬ್ಲಡ್ ಎಲ್ಲಿಗೆ ಬರುತ್ತೆ? Deoxygenated blood which is from the upper vena cava and the lower vena cava, so that is received by the upper right atrium. When it contract, the blood that next move to the right ventricle. Right ventricle ಗೆ ಮೂವ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. When the right ventricle contracts, when it contracts, the blood that moves into the pulmonary arteries, through the pulmonary arteries, it moves to the lungs. So because in the lungs, again the carbon dioxide will remove and the oxygenation of the blood takes place. ಇಲ್ಲೇನಾಗತ್ತೆ ಅಂದರೆ ಬ್ಲಡ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿರುವಂತಹ ಕಾರ್ಬನ್ ಡೈಆಕ್ಸೈಡ್ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಲಂಗ್ಸ್ಗೆ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ, ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಲಂಗ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿರುವಂಥ ಆಕ್ಸಿಜನ್ ಬ್ಲಡ್ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಮಿಕ್ಸ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ. ದೆನ್ again it will get purified and comes to the heart again. So this is what the double circulation, the steps involved in the double circulation. Why it is called as a double circulation? Here, the blood flows through the twice in one cycle called double circulation. So, the blood flows twice in the heart for a one cycle. To complete the one cycle, the blood flows two times. So, it is called as a double circulation. So, in human, it is called as a double circulation. Okay. So, these are the steps involved in the double circulation. One of the important question. Give reason. Ventricles of the human heart have thick wall. It is necessary to separate the oxygenated and deoxygenated blood in mammals and birds. Why it is necessary to separate this blood? So let us check the answer. Ventricles of human heart. So pump the blood. They ventricles pump the blood to the different organs. Its walls are thick. Because of that, its walls are thicker than the atria. Its walls are thicker than the atria. Okay, that is the first reason why the ventricles are having the thick walls than the atria. Next question. Why it is necessary to separate the oxygenated blood and deoxygenated blood, especially in the mammals and the birds? Why it is necessary? Separating the blood allows for a more efficient supply of the oxygen to the body cells. The uh, oxygen supply that is more when the blood is separated. This is important for animals like mammals and birds. Why it is important for mammals and birds? Because which have high energy needs and constantly use energy to maintain their body temperature. To maintain their body temperature, they need the uh, more energy. So that energy is that is by the supply of the oxygen through the blood. So there is a necessity of the separating the oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. Next question. Which are the factors essential for photosynthesis? Mention the events occur during the process of photosynthesis and represent the process by balanced chemical equation. First thing, which are the factors essential for the photosynthesis? Here, carbon dioxide, water, water, then sunlight. These are the factors which are essential for the photosynthesis. Mention the events that occur during this process and represent this process in the balanced chemical equation. And chlorophyll also essential. Yes. Then what are the events occur during this photosynthesis? Absorption of light energy by chlorophyll, conversion of light energy to chemical energy and splitting of water molecules into hydrogen and oxygen, reduction of carbon dioxide to carbohydrates. So these are the three steps occur in the photosynthesis process. Then how to write the balanced chemical equation? That is carbon dioxide. Please students, please write down the equation plus water which produces the C6H12O6 plus CO2, sorry, plus O2 oxygen plus oxygen plus H2O. Here, carbon dioxide and water in the presence of the sunlight and the chlorophyll pigment. Just check here. 6 CO2. Yes, here C6 is there. So I will add 12 H2O. So that gives us 6O2, 12 plus 6 plus 12. So 12H2O. So this is how to balance the chemical reaction. So check the carbon, hydrogen and oxygen atoms in this reactant and the product. One of the important reaction. How are the functions of arteries, veins and capillaries are interrelated in the circulation of the blood? How these arteries, veins and capillaries they are interrelated? So what are arteries, what are veins and what are capillaries that you should know? Arteries are the vessels, blood vessels, which carry the blood away from the heart to the various organs. The oxygenated blood, they carry the oxygenated blood to the various organs. Since the blood emerges from the heart under high pressure, the arteries have the thick elastic walls. So they will ask for 1 marks why the arteries having the thick walls, elastic walls, because the blood emerges from the heart under high pressure. Because of that, arteries have thick elastic walls. Then veins collect the blood from the different organs and bring it back to the heart. They bring the blood to the heart. They do not need thick walls because the blood is no longer under pressure. Instead, they have the walls that ensure the blood flows on in one direction. Then what are capillaries? So, sorry. On reaching the organ or tissues, just imagine this is the artery. So on reaching the tissues or any organs, so it will break down into small, it will become small branches like this. So this is called capillaries and they reach the different cells separately like this. And in the cells, there is a some breakdown of the glucose and release of the energy will take place, and carbon dioxide is also released. And again, there is a small capillaries, they carry this carbon dioxide with them and they will join into veins. So again, this is called as a veins which carry the blood to the heart. So arteries, they carry the blood to the different organs. Again, where the carbon dioxide is produced, that is carried by the capillaries, and they will join to form the large blood vessel that is called as a vein that carry the blood to the heart. So here, so like this, the veins and capillaries and arteries are connected. The smallest vessel have walls which are one cell thick and are called capillaries. So these are called as a capillaries. So these three are like this, they are interconnected. Next question. How does the transportation of water take place over the heights in a plant? Explain. How does the transportation of the water takes place over the heights in a plant? Yes. How it takes place? In the xylem tissue, vessels and tracheids of the roots, stems, and leaves are interconnected to form a continuous system of water conducting channels reaching all the parts of the plant. Then, all at the roots, how the water will enter into the roots. At the roots, the cells contact with the soil actively take up the ions. This creates a difference in the concentration of these ions between the root and the soil. Water, therefore, so when the concentration difference is there, water enter into the root from the soil to the eliminate this difference. This means that there is a steady movement of water into root xylem, creating a column of water that is steadily pushed upwards. The column of water that steadily push upwards. So, because of that, water is moving upwards in the plant. Next, again, one more thing, that is due to the evaporation. Evaporation of water molecules from the cells of a leaf creates a suction. So, which pulls the water from the xylem cells of the root. So, this suction pressure that pulls the water from the xylem cells. So, like this, the transportation of the water takes place in the xylem. Then explain the process of digestion in the small intestine. So already we have studied this question ಅಲ್ವಾ. Small intestine ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ ತರ digestion ಆಗತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ. You know that the small intestine receives the bile juice. Simply I will explain. Just recall this bile juice, and from the pancreas it receives the pancreatic juice. Pancreatic juice. Then from the small intestine itself, it receives the walls of the small intestine, they release the intestinal juice. Okay, so bile juice that act on the fat to break down the large globules of the fat into small fat globules. And pancreatic juice, this pancreatic juice that contain the enzymes lipase and one more enzyme that is trypsin. Lipase act on the fat and trypsin act on the protein. So finally, the intestinal juice which contain the enzymes, using that enzyme, the intestinal juice, so that transfer, that convert the carbohydrate into glucose, and next these proteins into amino acids, then uh, the fats into glycerol and fatty acids alva. So this is what we learnt in the first question. So starting ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಇದೇ ಸೆಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಓದ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ವಿ ಅಲ್ವಾ. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಕ್ವಶನ್, what are the difference between autotrophic nutrition and heterotrophic nutrition? What are the difference between the autotrophic and the heterotrophic nutrition? So while writing the difference, you have to make two columns and write. Here I'm not giving like that. Please remember that. Okay. So don't write like this. You have to make two columns and write. So I hope you know that. Food is produced by the conversion of atmospheric gases and water in the special condition internally within their body. Autotrophic nutrition means within their body by using the simple substances it is produced. And heterotrophic nutrition, food is taken directly from the autotrophs. Directly or indirectly, they will take the food from the autotrophs. Then it is broken down with the help of enzymes. Then presence of chlorophyll is necessary and no pigment is required in this nutrition. And food can be prepared at all times, but food is generally prepared during the daytime only, in the presence of sunlight only the autotrophic nutrition takes place. And all animals and fungi have this type of the nutrition. Here almost all plants and some bacteria have this type of the nutrition. That is the difference between the autotrophic nutrition and the heterotrophic nutrition. Write down the points. Next question. What are the different ways in which glucose is oxidized to provide energy in various organisms? How the glucose is oxidized in various organisms? So the first thing is, just I will explain generally. The glucose in all three type of the respiration, how the glucose is oxidized. First, pyruvate is formed. Then pyruvate that will break down into different pathways in the presence of oxygen or in the absence of oxygen. So like this, the pyruvate will break down. Okay. So let us see this. So in the all living organisms, glucose is partially oxidized into pyruvate. Okay. So in the anaerobic respiration, pyruvate is converted into ethanol and carbon dioxide in the absence of the oxygen. This process takes place in the yeast during the fermentation process. Okay. Sometimes during the vigorous muscular activities, when the oxygen is inadequate, when the oxygen is low, when the oxygen is availability is less than the cellular respiration, the pyruvate is converted into lactic acid in the muscle cells. So this is the anaerobic respiration. In the aerobic respiration, it takes place in the mitochondria where the pyruvate is completely oxidized in the presence of the oxygen. So what it forms at the end, carbon dioxide, water, large amount of energy is released. Okay, so that is how the glucose oxidize into different pathways, that is anaerobic respiration and the aerobic respiration. Next question. How are the lungs designed in the human beings to maximize the area for exchange of gases? How the lungs are designed? The exchange of gases takes place between the blood of the capillaries that surrounded by the alveoli and gases present in the alveoli. So you know that. So lungs. So this is the trachea and it will become bronchi and the bronchi. So that will differentiate into bronchioles. So at the end, so there is a balloon shaped structure, secondary bronchiole, tertiary bronchioles, so like this. But here you can observe the balloon shaped structure like this. So these are called as alveoli. Okay, these are called as alveoli. Here, alveoli are the site for exchange of gases. The lungs get filled up with the air during the process of inhalation. When the when the oxygen enter into this, the lungs, so that will get filled with the inhalation. The air that is rushed inside the lungs fills the numerous alveoli present in the lungs. each lung contains 300 to 350 millions of alveoli. This numerous alveoli increases the surface area for gaseous exchange, making the process of respiration more efficient. So we call as alveoli as a structural and functional unit, because here, so where the exchange of the gases takes place, so which increases the surface area, the numerous alveoli increases the surface area for the gaseous exchange, so the uh, exchange making the process of the respiration more efficient. Next question: how are fats digested in our bodies? Where this process takes place? The digestion of the fat that takes place in the small intestine only. There is no digestion of the fat in the mm, uh, stomach and mouth. So only the digestion of fat takes place in the small intestine. Small intestine. Here, the bile juice, which convert the large globules of fat into small small globules, where the enzyme can break down these small globules. Then pancreatic juice, so it contain the enzyme lipase, so helps for the digestion of the fat. Then finally, the intestinal juice contain the enzymes convert the fat into fatty acid and glycerol, which is the simplest form of the fat. Okay, like this, there is a digestion of the fat takes place in our body. Yes, this is the answer. Fats are digested in the small intestine. The small intestine gets bile juice and pancreatic juice respectively from the liver and the pancreas. The bile salts break down the large fat globules into smaller globules so that pancreatic enzymes can easily act on them. This is referred to as a emulsification of the fat. It takes place in the small intestine. Then again, so you should write one more step, that is the intestinal juice that contain the enzyme. So finally uh, that break down the fat into fatty acid and glycerol, and pancreatic juice which enzyme, so that is the lipase alva. So ಅದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ನೀವು ಮೆನ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಬರಿಬೇಕು. Next question: how is the amount of urine produced is regulated? How the amount of urine produced is regulated? Sorry. Different organisms use different strategies for the excretion. Many unicellular organisms remove the waste by the, just a minute, simple diffusion from the body surface. But multicellular organisms, they use the specialized structure that are called as kidneys. And in human beings, the kidneys which contain the nephrons that helpful for the removal of the waste products in our body. Here, the nephrons, so these nephrons they are helping for the reabsorption of the nutrients which are present in the filtrate. See the next question: describe the structure and functioning of the nephron. One of the important question. Describe the structure and functioning of the nephrons. Functions of nephrons. Some substances in the initial filtrate, such as glucose, amino acids, salts, and major amount of water, are selectively reabsorbed as the urine flows along the tube. So that is helpful for the reabsorption. Then the amount of water is reabsorbed depends on how much excess of water is there in our body and how much dissolved waste there is in our uh, waste should be excreted. The urine formation in each kidney is eventually, and the urine the forming in the each kidney eventually enters into a long tube that is called as a ureter, and which connects the kidneys with the urinary bladder, and this urine is stored in the urinary bladder that pass through the urethra. The bladder is muscular, so it is under a nervous control. As a result, that we can usually control and urge to urinate. So this is how the structure and function. So you have to draw the diagram, you have to practice the diagram. Sometimes they will ask the explanation, sometimes they will ask the diagram. Why is diffusion insufficient to meet the oxygen requirements of multicellular organisms like humans? Here the diffusion is insufficient, so that is not able to meet the requirements of the multicellular organisms. In unicellular organisms it takes place, diffusion of the oxygen enter through the diffusion process. In multicellular organisms like humans, all the body cells are not in direct contact with the surrounding environment. All the cells are, they are not contact, right? But therefore every cell of the body will not get oxygen as per the need by the process of diffusion from the environment. So ನಮ್ಮ ಎಲ್ಲ ಬಾಡಿ ಸೆಲ್ಸಿಗೂ ಒಂದೇ ತರ ಆಕ್ಸಿಜನ್ ಸಪ್ಲೈ ಆಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ. So because every cell is not contacted with the environment, therefore diffusion is insufficient to meet the oxygen requirements of the multicellular organisms. Where do plants get each of the raw materials required for the photosynthesis? Here, the raw materials like water and minerals. So, so they will get the raw material from the environment, especially water and minerals from the soil, then carbon dioxide. So that is also from the our environment. Chlorophyll, chlorophyll that is present in the leaves. Chlorophyll is present in the leaves. Then sunlight, which is from the sun, which is present in our environment. So these all are, so that we are getting from the here. Plants get the carbon dioxide from the environment. Then water, plants absorb the water from the soil. Sunlight, so getting it from the sun. Chlorophyll, it is already present in the green leaves of the plants. Okay. So, so here I will stop the class here. If you have any doubts, you can ask. Please write down in the chat box. Yes. So these are the very important questions for your board exam. Please practice the question answer for your board exam. ನಿಮಗೆ ಡಯಾಗ್ರಾಮ್ಸ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, MCQs ಇರ್ಬೋದು, 1 mark ಕ್ವಶನ್ಸ್ ಇರ್ಬೋದು. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಯಾವ್ದು ಕೇಳಬಹುದು ಆ ಥರ ಕ್ವಶನ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ತೆಗೆದುಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೇವೆ. ಹಾಗೆ ಯಾವುದು ಕೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಪೇಪರಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ್ಯಾವುದನ್ನ ಕೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಈ ರೀತಿಯಾದಂಥ ಕ್ವಶನ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ತೆಗೆದುಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೇವೆ. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಈಸ್ ವೆರಿ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ಫುಲ್ ಫಾರ್ ಯುವರ್ ಬೋರ್ಡ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಮ್. Please go through this and please practice the question answers and read the chapters repeatedly. Okay. Thank you. We'll continue in